At this distressing time when my soul was vexing me and triggering impatience, this peace silenced it completely and induced me to offer thanks. It is attached here in the hope that it will be useful for you too, for I have it hanging beside me. 1. O my soul, in 73 years you have received more than your share of pleasures, and none is now owing to you. 2. You want passing pleasures to persist and start weeping when they disappear. You receive slaps for this error of yours, arising from blind emotions. 3. Underlying the injustices and calamities you suffer is the justice of divine determining. People oppress you for something you didn't do, but due to your secret faults, divine determining both drains you through the hand of those calamities, and they are atonement for those faults. 4. My impatient soul, as a consequence of hundreds of experiences, you believe certainly that divine providence dispenses truly sweet results beneath apparent calamities. The verse, "It may be that you hate a thing, but it is good for you," teaches a certain truth. It constantly recalls it. Moreover, the divine law that turns the wheel of firmament, that vast law of divine determining, will not be changed just for your sake. 5. Make the sacred rule. The believer in divine determining suffers no grief, your guiding principle. Don't run after fleeting, trivial pleasures like capricious, unthinking children. Know that passing pleasures leave behind pains and regrets, whereas difficulties and suffering yield spiritual pleasures and rewards in the hereafter. If you aren't crazy, you will seek temporal pleasures only for thanks. They are anyway given to prompt the offering of thanks. Sayyid Nursi. My dear, esteemed brother, I read your lengthy treatise-like comprehensive, precisely researched, and eager letter with the greatest interest. In the first place, I have to tell you that Imam Ali, may God be pleased with him, is the Risale-i Nur's master, and with his symbolic allusions in his Oath al-Jaljaliyya shows much concern for the Risale-i Nur, and is my particular master in the truths of belief. In accordance with the verse, say, I ask no recompense of you save love of close kin. Love of the prophets, upon whom be blessings and peace, family, is a fundamental principle of the Risale-i Nur and our way, so Wahhabism should not be espoused in any way by any true Nur student. Since, at the present time, atheists and the people of misguidance profit from differences and confuse the believers, and corrupting the marks of Islam, form powerful currents opposite to the Qur'an and belief, the door of disputed minor questions should not be opened in the face of this awesome enemy. Moreover, the Sunnis stated that there is no need to vilify the dead, for they have departed for their place of punishment in the hereafter, and love of the prophets, upon whom be blessings and peace, family, does not necessitate publicizing their faults harmfully and unnecessarily. They opposed discussion of the dissension that occurred at the time of the companions. The Sunnis said that since at the incident of the camel, Zubair, Talha, and Aisha al-Siddiqah, may God be pleased with them, of the 10 promised paradise were present, the war resulted from an independent ruling, so even if Imam Ali was right and the other side was wrong, it would be forgiven. The Sunnis also consider it harmful to discuss the rebels at this Siffin war, lest either those inclined to Wahhabism or extremist Shi'is cause harm to Islam. The prominent authority of the science of theology, Sadeddin al-Taftazani, said about violence like Hajjaj the tyrant, Yazid, and Walid that it is permissible to curse them, but he did not say that it was compulsory or that it was a good thing or earned reward. For there are innumerable people who deny both the Qur'an and the Prophet, upon whom be blessings and peace, and the companions' secret conversations. There are many of them everywhere. There is no harm according to the Sharia if a person does not recall those deserving of execration and does not curse them. For unlike goodness and love, execration and vilification are not included among good works, and if they are harmful, that is far worse. At the present time, there are coward dissemblers everywhere who, inclining towards Wahhabism, exert an influence over certain Hojas who more than anyone are charged with protecting Islam and the truth of the Qur'an. They accuse the people of truth of Alevism, exploit one against the other, and try to deal awesome blows at Islam. You wrote briefly about this in your letter. In fact, you know that they found the Hojas to be the most effective tool to wield against myself and the Risale-i Nur. The Wahhabis, who ruled the two sacred mosques of Mecca and Medina, and with the fascinating works of the famous, awesome geniuses Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, having long since got into the hands of some Istanbul Hojas, a group of Hojas who favor the innovations and want to use them against the saints and to screen their permissive way, may make a pretext of your ruling, which arose from love of the Prophet's upon whom blessings and peace family, and should not now be publicized, and deal a blow at both yourself and the Nur students. There is no comment in the Sharia not to vilify and accuse of unbelief, but there is an injunction concerning such actions, and to unjustly execrate and impute unbelief causes serious harm. If it is just fable, there is no good or reward involved. Those who deserve it are innumerable. But there is no injunction in the Sharia concerning not vilifying or accusing of unbelief, so it is not harmful in any way. It is because of this fact that the people of reality, the Sunnis, and foremost the 4 Imams and the 12 Imams, took the sacred law based on the above truth as their guide, and did not consider it permissible among Muslims to make that time strife the subject of discussion and debate, saying that to do so was without benefits and harmful. Also, leading companions were found on both sides in those wars, and if one talks about those conflicts, taking one side or the other, one might feel opposed to or critical of some of the 10 promised paradise such as Talha or Zubair, may God be pleased with them. If they committed any faults, there is a strong possibility that they repented. As for returning to those times and dwelling on those events unnecessarily and harmfully, without the sanction of the Sharia, and adopting a stance that infers disregard of those who at this time are dealing awesome blows at Islam, in fact, and deserve to be execrated and loved, does not befit a believer and is not congruent with the sacred duty of any conscientious person. In fact, I can't conceal it from you that your minor dispute with Sabri caused considerable harm to the dissemination of both the Risale-i Nur and the truth of belief. I felt it here at very time and was affected and saddened. Then, while awaiting from both a discerning scholar like yourself and Sabri, who had gone there to work for the Risale-i Nur, that both of you would perform useful services, I felt and understood that, on the contrary, harm had been caused to the Risale-i Nur in 3 respects. I was wondering about the cause of this when 2 or 3 days later I received news that Sabri had argued with you in meaningless, unwarranted fashion, and that you had become angry. Alas, I exclaimed, O God, make peace between these 2 people who have come from Erzurum to assist me, settle the dispute between them. As it says in the 20th flash on sincerity, at the present time the believers should unite not only with their Muslim brothers, but also with religiously minded Christians, and avoiding questions of dispute, not engage in arguments and debate, for absolute disbelief is on the attack. I appeal to your religious zeal, scholarly experience, and attachment to the Risale-i Nur, and request that you try to forget the argument with Sabri, and forgive him and waive your rights. For he was not voicing his own views, but was repeating things he had heard from the Hojas of the former times, and started arguing in uncalled for manner. It would be a good act, a meritorious and atonement for many sins, as you know. Sabri, my fellow countryman, has performed such services for the Risale-i Nur, and through it for belief that they would cause 1,000 faults to be forgiven. With your magnanimity, for the sake of his service you should look on him as a friend, fellow countryman, and companion in the work of the Risale-i Nur. In those words, a group of the companions followed relative justice as permitted by the Sharia and abandoned the pure justice and adherence to the Sharia that Imam Ali, may God be pleased with him, followed, and his ascetic, self-denying way. Since due to this ruling, they joined the opposing side, and Imam Ali's brother, Aqil, and Abdullah ibn Abbas, who was known as Hibrar Ummah, even joined it for a time. The true Sunnis took as their rule, closing the gate of dissension is one of the videos of the Sharia, and declaring, God did not allow us to spill their blood, so, as thanks for his great favor, we shall hold our tongues, considered it appropriate not to put too much emphasis on the matter. They argued that even if some of them deserved criticism, some of the leading companions and members of the Prophet's upon whom the blessings and peace family who were on the opposing side, and some of the 10 promised paradise like Talha and Zubayr, may God be pleased with them, would be objected to and vilified, causing enmity, so they favored closing that door. In fact, Sadeddin al-Taftazani, one of the greatest authorities of the Sunnis and of the science of Kalam, permitted the execration of Yazid and Walid and the pronouncement of their unbelief. In response to this, other Sunni scholars such as Sayyid Sharif al-Jurjani said, "For sure Yazid and Walid were iniquitous, cruel sinners, but it is not known whether or not they died without believing. And because it is not known with any certainty, since there is no definite record or incontrovertible evidence, there is a possibility that they repented and died in a state of belief. In which case, it is not permissible for particular persons such as them to be cursed. It may be permissible to curse in a general sort of way, saying, may God curse the wrongdoers and the dissemblers. Otherwise, it is harmful and unnecessary." The reasons I have been unable to reply at length to your scholarly and detailed letter are my serious illness and pressing occupations. I have therefore only been able to write this much hastily. The enduring one, he is the enduring one, Said Nursi. Part of a conversation with the Interior Minister. I have been the target of an injustice that has been unprecedented in history on the face of the earth, and cruelty and oppression that are illegal in 10 respects. It is as follows. How does it profit you to inflict the police on an extremely weak, elderly, 71-year-old who is severely ill from being poisoned as a result of a conspiracy, is alone in piteous exile, impoverished to the extent that he had to sell his sack, coat, vest, and slippers to secure his needs, a solitary recluse who for 25 years is able to meet with only one completely loyal person out of 1,000, an innocent man whose life and works of 20 years have been ruled by 3 courts, and the Ankara Experts Committee to be beneficial, not harmful, for the country and nation, a son of this land who performed important services in the Great War, a patriot who has striven with all his strength with his effective works to save this nation and country from anarchy and the corruption of foreigners, and as has been testified to by 70 witnesses in court, has not read a newspaper for 25 years, nor been curious about the news, has taken no interest in the Second World War, nor has asked about it, nor known about it, and as is proud in his works has completely cut all his ties with politics, and as has been admitted officially by your judiciary, has not interfered in your world. How does it benefit you to set foremost yourself, the Interior Minister, and the Governor of Afyon, and the Emirda police on this wretched Said, who flees desperately from public regard lest harm should come to his life in the hereafter, and his sincerity, and dislikes and shrinks from his brother's good opinions about him, and their praise? What profit is there in making him suffer in one day the terms of a month's solitary confinement, compelling him to remain all alone and solitary in anguish? I ask, what law permits this ghastly cruelty? And I declare the above to the Interior Minister by way of the Minister of Justice, which protects the rights of the public. Said Nursi, who is unjustly deprived of all civil and human rights and the right to life. To Hilmi Bey, former Interior Minister and now General Secretary of the Republican People's Party. Firstly, the only petition I have written in 20 years was to you when you were Interior Minister. But I did not break my rule of 20 years and did not submit it. If you like, I can read it to you. I shall speak to you as both former Interior Minister and present General Secretary. To speak for 10 hours would be little indeed for someone who has not addressed the government for 20 years and spoken only once with one of its leading members, and that on account of the government. So permit me to speak with you for an hour or two. Secondly, I consider myself obliged to explain a matter to you as present General Secretary of the party. It is this. O Turkish nation and brothers in religion who have been Turkified and have for 1,000 years gratified the Islamic world with their heroism and are renowned for the preeminent role they have played in preserving Islamic unity and saving the world of humanity from absolute disbelief and misguidance. If, mistakenly and to the detriment of religion, you do not now defend the Qur'an and truths of belief as you did formerly, and if you and the patriots who resemble you do not strive to spread the truths of the Qur'an directly in place of the propaganda of present-day civilization, I can tell you most certainly and demonstrate to you with decisive proofs that instead of the Islamic world's love and brotherhood, you shall earn its loathing and disgust, and you shall fall prey to the anarchy underlying absolute disbelief that is now attempting to destroy the Islamic world. You shall be the cause of the Islamic world's steadily and renowned army, the Turkish nation, being torn to pieces and overrun by the fearsome monster that has emerged from the northeast. Yes, this heroic nation may withstand the two terrible currents pressing down from outside by relying on the strength of the Qur'an. Only this nation can halt absolute disbelief, absolute despotism, and absolute dissipation, and the current that gains an overwhelming force by allowing the rebellious to seize the wealth of the upright. Only this nation, which is fused with Islam and united with Islam, and the past has won all its honor through Islam. The zealous patriots of this nation will halt that current, God willing, by taking the truth of the Qur'an as their guiding principles in place of secular education, for they are the lifeblood of this nation, which is thus fused and united. The second current's representatives have followed a strategy of accustoming their colonies in the Islamic world to themselves in order to entirely bind them to this current, to impute irreligion to the powerful Islamic center of this country, and to corrupt it, and in effect to sever the bonds between this country and the Islamic world, and turn the latter's brotherhood into enmity. It has been somewhat successful in this up to the present. If this current were to come to its senses, it would change this alarming strategy and placate Islam in the center just as it has placated the Islamic world. It would both profit enormously and preserve its vast conquest to a degree, and save this country and nation from a ghastly calamity. If the patriotic, nation-loving people of whom you are the General Secretary attempt to persist with the principles that have been in force up to now, and have trampled our sacred matters on account of modern civilization, and taking as their guiding principles the policies enacted by 3 or 4 people in the name of reform, they ascribe the resulting ghastly errors to the nation, then the evils performed by the 3 or 4 will become 3 or 4 million, and will constitute serious opposition to the innumerable past armies of the Turkish nation with their millions of martyrs. For this nation is a heroic and religious nation, and the army of Islam, to persist in the above will be a cause of dishonor and torment to their spirits. Moreover, if the good works which have found existence through the nation's and army's power and zeal, and in which those 3 or 4 reformist men had a very small part, are ascribed to those 3 or 4 men, those 3 or 4 million good works will be reduced and restricted to 3 or 4 good works, and will in no way atone for those awesome errors. Thirdly, you surely have numerous and various opponents, both internal and external. I would not know because I have not concerned myself with worldly or political affairs. But because they have harassed me so much this year, I have been compelled to search for the reason, and I saw that an opponent of yours had emerged. If that opponent had been a perfect leader and had appeared in the name of the truth of belief, he would have defeated you in one fell swoop. For 99% of this nation has for 1,000 years been bound heart and spirit to the traditions of Islam. Even if it bows obediently to the commands of an opposing nature, it would not be bound to them with the heart. Furthermore, Muslims do not resemble other nations. If they give up their religion, they become anarchists and cannot be held by any bonds. They can be controlled only by absolute despotism and unqualified bribery, and not by any educative or preventative measures. There are numerous examples proving this fact, so I am cutting it short and refer it to your intelligence. Sweden, Norway, and Finland have felt an intense need this century for the Qur'an. It is essential that you do not lag behind them. Your duty is to act as guide to them and to others like them. If you ascribe the errors of the reforms that have occurred up to the present to the 3 or 4 men, and try to repair the destruction caused under the constraints of the World War and other revolutions, especially the destruction caused to the religious traditions, it will both win you great honor in the future and be atonement in the hereafter for your serious mistakes, and be a useful service for the country and nation, and make you deserving to be known as patriotic and a lover of the nation. Fourthly, since death cannot be killed, nor the door of the grave be closed, and since like everyone you are racing towards it, and since for the people of misguidance certain death means being sentenced to eternal non-being, and no matter how zealous preoccupation with politics and worldly matters cannot change this, and since you now have in your possession the Risale-i Nur, which proves as clearly as daylight that for the believers the Qur'an transforms everlasting execution into discharge papers, and in 20 years no scientist or atheist has been able to challenge it. On the contrary, it has brought to believe scientists who have studied it attentively, and in the space of 12 years, 4 of your criminal courts and committees of experts made up of philosophers and religious scholars have applauded, affirmed, and appreciated it, and have been unable to object to the proofs it contains of the matters of belief. And since I can put forward as witnesses 100,000 members of the Turkish nation, especially its youth with a secular education, that together with its being in no way harmful for this nation and country, it is a Qur'anic barrier resembling the barrier of Zulkarnain that withstands the fearsome currents that are assaulting them. Most certainly, it is incumbent upon you that you consider fully these ideas of mine that I am presenting to you. At all times you lend an ear to worldly diplomats, so should therefore heed, if only a little, a wretched person like myself who is at the door of the grave and speaks on behalf of the hereafter and weeps at the circumstances of his fellow citizens. Footnote: although for 20 years I had never applied to the authorities, this petition was written once off when I was angry and addressed the Interior Minister, Hilmi, and for the record was sent to the Afyon Police Chief. 4 or 5 times they unnecessarily and meaninglessly caused me distress, calling me to the police station officially and asking me, "Your handwriting isn't like that. Who wrote that for you?" I replied, "Petition shouldn't be made to such people. I was right to remain silent for 20 years. Police and authorities of Emirdağ, I wrote this conversation a year ago, but I didn't send it and kept it. Now, in 5 ways that are illegal they have interfered and prevented me from having anyone to assist me in the place I stay and enforce out and out tyranny on me in a way unheard of in this world. I am informing you of this with the idea that those who act illegally in the name of the law will come to act justly.